ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਹਿੱਸੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਦੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਚੀਫ ਮਾਰਕ ਨਿਊਫੈਲਡ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਅਸੀਂ ਈਅਰ ਐਂਡ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਹਰ ਸਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇਸ ਵਾਰ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਾਅ ਐਂਡ ਆਰਡਰ, ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ, ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਮਾਰਕ ਨਿਊਫੈਲਡ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੇ ਚੀਫ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੇ। ਚੀਫ, ਵੈਰੀ ਗੁੱਡ ਮਾਰਨਿੰਗ ਐਂਡ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਸਰ।
Thank you very much, Rishi. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Thank you. So what would you consider the Calgary Police Service's biggest accomplishment in this year, and what challenges stood out the most?
You know what? Our members had a good year this year, Rishi. They did a lot of good work, but I think one of the things that really stands out for me is the gains we've made with respect to gun violence. So you'll remember last year, I think at the year-end interview, we talked about gun violence, and I think we had 100 shootings at the end of the year last year, and at the end of 2022, the year before, it was 127.
That's right.
I said at that point, I would like to see that cut in half. So this year, where it's 71 today, which is still 71 too many, I'm sure everybody would agree. But in a big city, we'll always have some, right? And so there has been some gains in respect to the shootings. We're down about 30% from where we were this time last year. And that's really largely as a result of lots of very, very good work done around targeting of high-risk individuals that were involved in conflict, and some very good arrests that were made that actually have made the city safer. So that's one for sure.
That's great. So ਸ਼ੂਟਿੰਗ ਵਾਰਦਾਤਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਮੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ 71 ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੀ ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ੂਟਿੰਗ ਇੰਸੀਡੈਂਟਸ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ। ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਨੰਬਰ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਡੇ ਪੱਧਰ 'ਤੇ ਘੱਟ ਕਰਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ। ਇਹੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਐਂਡ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਹੈਜ਼ ਸੀਨ ਰਾਈਜ਼ ਇਨ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਕੰਸਰਨਸ ਅਬਾਊਟ community safety this year. So how do you assess the city's overall safety and crime trends compared to previous year?
Very interesting question. And yes, we have certainly heard the community's concerns around safety. And so I think it's a bit of a mixed story. And what I mean by that is this. Statistically, the city is becoming safer. So crime is down in most categories. Break and enters, commercial break and enters, residential break and enters, shootings, as I mentioned. Homicides are down. Today we have 16 homicides. Last year at this time we had 21, the year before 27. So in a lot of categories, crime is down. However, I know that we're still hearing from people that they don't feel completely safe downtown and in public spaces along transit. And so there's definitely more work to be done there. As your listeners will know, there's been lots of investment and lots of initiatives that have taken place. We've got the community safety or community engagement response teams that have gone into each district. The Navigation Centre was opened up by the province. We've had this year Action Table Calgary, focusing on what I'll call heavy users of service or high systems users, people who are coming into contact with police and EMS and healthcare over and over again. So a lot of work is being done. Some of these interventions are quite new, so we certainly haven't seen the full benefit just yet. But I think, again, there's two things going on. One is by the numbers, things are improving. The city's getting safer. But on the other hand, I think people's perceptions of safety still aren't where we need them to be. And to be honest, perception is reality because that drives behavior. And if people don't feel comfortable going downtown or riding transit or going and patronizing businesses in a particular location, then that's a big problem. And we need to keep working on that together.
ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਵਿੱਚ 71 ਸ਼ੂਟਿੰਗ ਇੰਸੀਡੈਂਟਸ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਇਹ ਕਾਫੀ ਘੱਟ ਨੇ। 2022 ਦੇ ਮੁਕਾਬਲੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਹ ਘੱਟ ਨੇ। ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਲਾਸਟ ਈਅਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਈਅਰ ਐਂਡ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਉਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਪੁੱਛੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਅਗਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਟੀਚਾ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਟੀਚਾ ਇਹ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਨ ਸ਼ੂਟਿੰਗ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਘੱਟ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਆਈਆਂ ਨੇ। ਇਹ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਕਿ 71 ਵੀ ਘੱਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ, ਪਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਘੱਟ ਨੇ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹਦੀ ਤਸੱਲੀ ਹੈ। ਦੂਜਾ ਇਹ ਕਿ ਕਦੀ ਗਨ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਸ ਨਹੀਂ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਟੀ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਨੇ, ਵਹੀਕਲ ਥੈਫਟਸ, ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਐਂਡ ਡੈਂਸ, ਅਤੇ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਨੇ, ਛੋਟੇ ਪੈਟੀ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਕੰਸੀਡਰੇਬਲ ਕਮੀ ਦਰਜ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਾਮਯਾਬੀ ਹਾਸਲ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। And Chief, there is a difference of opinion between what government says and what the police says on the safety cameras, the speed cameras. So how do you look at the newest decision taken by the government?
Yeah, we're concerned about the decision in relation to the impact it's going to have. Certainly, I can speak more for the large cities. We have had cameras, intersection safety cameras, red light and speed on green cameras, as well as the photo radar vans that you see or vehicles parked since about 2008. And so in Calgary, what we've seen is a very substantial decrease in the number of fatal collisions, down by 75%, the number of serious injury collisions, down by 55%, and the number of overall collisions have been down by about 35%. So those are very good results. The other piece of that is we have not, because of being able to use technology, we haven't had to have police officers going and doing that enforcement, and then also going to court when the tickets are contested. So that's been a big efficiency. With the government's decision now, we are going to have to put police officers back into that space to do traffic safety work. And that's going to come at the expense of some of the other important work like responding to calls for service, protests and demonstrations, dealing with large events like the World Petroleum Congress, G7 Summit, things that Calgarians really value. We're going to have to take some police officers away from those things and basically go backward, in my view, to deploy them to do traffic enforcement, more traffic enforcement.
ਸਰਕਾਰ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਤੇ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਸਟਰਗਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਂ। ਹੁਣ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਫਿਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਫੀਸਰ ਤੈਨਾਤ ਕਰਨੇ ਪੈਣਗੇ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੰਮ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੂਜੇ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ, ਸਾਡੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਫੀਸਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, ਉਹ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਸਾਗਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹ ਟ੍ਰੈਫਿਕ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ 'ਚ ਲੱਗਣਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀ ਐਨਰਜੀ, ਸਾਡੇ ਰਿਸੋਰਸਿਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉੱਧਰ ਇੰਗੇਜ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਮੰਨਣਾ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੀ ਆ, ਪਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਓਵਰਆਲ ਵੱਡਿਆਂ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਛੋਟੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ 'ਚ ਇਹਦਾ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਵੱਡਿਆਂ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਦਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਹੋਰ ਘੱਟ ਹੋਵੇ, ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਆਪਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਮਿਲੇ, ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਈਏ, ਰੇਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਫਾਈਲਿੰਗ ਖਤਮ ਹੋਵੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੇਸਿਜ਼ਮ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਕਸ਼ਨ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਬਣਾਈ ਆ, ਉਹਦੀਆਂ ਰਿਕਮੈਂਡੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਲਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵਿਆਪਕ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੋਣ ਦੀ ਸੰਭਾਵਨਾ ਹੈ। ਟਰਸਟ ਬਿਟਵੀਨ ਲਾਅ ਐਨਫੋਰਸਮੈਂਟ ਐਂਡ ਦੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਕਰੂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਪਾਰਟ of policing for sure. And how has CPS worked to build or rebuild the trust with Calgarians, especially with the underrepresented groups?
Yeah, this has been an issue for the last number of years, probably since 2020 and the murder of George Floyd. We've been doing a lot of work. We've been connected with the community, as you know, for many, many years. The community is very important to us. I think you said it best there. The trust and confidence is something that we have to have in order to be effective in the community. So we have the diversity advisory boards. We have a number of those, as you know, that we consult around various issues related to communities. We have the Anti-Racism Action Committee as well. This year we actually increased our footprint, I think, in the communities with more Indigenous relations officers and civilians in that space to work with the Indigenous community. And then also we've employed civilian mobilizers, or we call them, they're basically civilian individuals from the different communities that have come to work in the police service to act as a bridge as well between the community and the police service. So I think there's been a lot of work done this year. Even when I think of the changes that were made around the responding to calls for service, I think it's been a very good year. But there's been challenges too, as you know, with the geopolitics and the protests and demonstrations. That's gone on in the background as well. So I think it's been a good year, but also there's been challenges, as you know.
And so the recruitment and retention of officers have been challenges for police departments across Canada. And what is the current state of staffing at Calgary Police, and how is the service addressing burnout among officers?
Yeah, so again, a couple of really important issues you raised there. The first one is in terms of officers' perception and the community's perception in surveys as to whether or not the police service has enough staff. Officers certainly don't feel like they do, and the community often says they don't feel like we do either. Right now, we're fortunate as far as recruiting goes that we have a great city that people want to come to. And we also have a great community that supports its police service. So that's actually very helpful to us. As you know, many people are coming because of affordability reasons to purchase homes. So people will apply from, the West Coast, also Ontario, and also because of the good work done by our recruiting people, more and more people from diverse communities in Calgary are applying to become police officers as well. So all in all, we have some challenges around the amount of work we have to do, especially with the city growing. But at the same time, our recruiting numbers and the people applying seems to be pretty good still.
That's good. ਪੁਲਿਸ ਤੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿਚਕਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਟਰਸਟ ਦਾ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬੇਭਰੋਸਗੀ ਬੜੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਉਹਦਾ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ? ਕਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਿਲਡ ਔਰ ਰੀਬਿਲਡ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਟਰਸਟ ਵਿਦ ਕੈਲਗੇਰੀਅਨਸ, ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੰਡਰ ਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟੇਟਡ ਗਰੁੱਪ ਨੇ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਘੱਟ ਹੈ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਚੈਲੰਜ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਵੱਖੋ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਇਵੈਂਟਸ ਔਰਗੇਨਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹਦਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਨਤੀਜਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਰੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਕੋਆਪਰੇਸ਼ਨ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਟਿਪਸ ਮਿਲਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੋਆਪਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਮਿਲਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਫਰੋਮ ਜਨਰਲ ਪਬਲਿਕ, ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਭਰਪੂਰ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੈ। And when we talk about cyber crime or opioid crisis, have you implemented any new technologies or strategies this year to improve policing or respond to evolving challenges like in cybercrime and opioids?
Those are very much evolving challenges for sure. I think if you think about just what's happened in terms of online crime and scams and frauds that are happening, cryptocurrency losses. We even had the recent situation where somebody was demanding cryptocurrency and ended up burning down somebody's house after that. So there's certainly a lot of these sorts of challenges are going on. We have very, very good capabilities as far as cybercrime as the Calgary Police Service, and good partnerships as well with industry and with government and the university. So that's helping us as well. This is one of the things, because people who are involved in these frauds are sometimes not from in Canada. Prevention is a big piece, helping people to understand what's happening in terms of cybercrime and frauds and how to avoid becoming victimized is really important. So there's a real focus on the prevention piece as far as that goes. There's other challenges as well that have come up. I think you mentioned another one, and I just forget what you mentioned.
Opioid.
Oh, opioids, yes. So as the police service, you'll know that we're focused on the demand side. So we're focused on organized crime in particular because of the violence involved in organized crime. So when we talk about trying to take toxic drugs off the street and arrest those responsible for putting them there. But we don't just look at organized crime either. We look at individuals and groups who are victimizing vulnerable Calgarians. So if you think of downtown, your listeners will probably remember back when we had the group called The Family that was actually working downtown and dealing drugs to vulnerable people and actually restricting them from accessing services. So we will focus on those types of situations to make sure that people who are vulnerable aren't being further victimized.
And what are your top priorities while heading into 25? So what would success look like for Calgary in the coming year?
Well, there's a few things with respect to that. One of them we already talked about. We talked about safe public spaces and the fact that Calgarians are still not feeling completely safe and comfortable in some of those spaces. So we're going to continue to be focused on that in 2025. And actually speaking with Calgarians as well to make sure we have an ongoing dialogue about what exactly they're concerned about, to make sure we're attending to that. As I said, there's been lots of new investments into doing that work. So we need to make sure those are paying dividends. So safe public spaces is one for sure. The second, and it'll always be an issue for us, is the gun violence piece. We know how dangerous that is and how impacted folks are in the northern part of the city as well. So we want to make sure that we're on top of that and keep that down. And then, as you know, too, we've talked about G7 in 2025, G7 will be hosted in Kananaskis.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be a big event here in Calgary as well. We will work with Public Safety Canada and the RCMP on that. And we'll still continue to be the police of jurisdiction, making sure that all the people that come into Calgary as a result of G7 will be looked after as well. And so that's in addition to continuing to serve Calgarians as we do every day.
And the final words for our listeners.
I would just say thank you very much for another good year. As I mentioned before, the support from the community is really important to us. Even though we've been in an environment that's been evolving and it's been turbulent at times over the last number of years, one thing that certainly hasn't changed is the support the community gives to the Calgary Police Service, and our members are totally committed to serving Calgarians and making sure they're safe. So that hasn't changed either. So thank you for that, and happy holidays to your listeners.
Thank you, and to you as well and your team. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Rishi.
Thank you.